Hello and welcome back to our how-to series of videos. Once again, we are continuing on with our Dark Angels Hellblasters. We were focusing a little bit on some of these smaller details on our Sergeant last time, and we're going to kind of continue that trend with the rest of our other 4 units here. And I think last time I said I was going to do the plasma guns red. Excuse me. But going back, I'm pretty sure on my Dreadnought I actually kept it black, so we're going to kind of continue with that color scheme. And as I get a little bit more comfortable in my chair here, I am going to be switching to a little bit of a smaller brush than last time, just to kind of help with some of the finer details. Hopefully we don't make as much of a mess. I still need to go back and fix up that helmet on the Sergeant. But we're going to jump right in with our Balthazar Gold, continuing with the little emblems we were working on last time. Just kind of focusing on, if I can move my space around a little bit, the kind of skull insignias. I don't know what they're technically called. It's a different name than the Aquila, whatever you call it. The normal like double eagle symbol. Which is kind of like standard for a lot of the Imperial kind of logos, but it has its own certain little name. So if you happen to know it, please leave a comment. It would help me out tremendously. And once again, we just want to be a little bit careful. I actually need to adjust my lighting a little bit so I can see slightly better. There we are. And again, it kind of helps if you have kind of a raised up area like these little wings are. You can just very lightly kind of press down, and it helps you avoid kind of pushing it into the recesses around it. So if you do it carefully enough, you really won't have too much to clean up there. Of course, I'm not that great at it, so it's still a little bit of work getting it perfect. But as we move on to our next guy here, we're going to do the exact same thing. And his logo is a little bit easier to kind of reach. So that does make things nice and simple for us. There we are. And I think my next project I'm kind of thinking about, I found some Necrons that I have that are unpainted. And I think that's kind of going to be a fun little project, much different than, kind of what we've been doing between the Tyranids and Space Marines. I also have the rest of the Combat Patrol box, and I think originally I was going to do Dark Angels for all of it. I have like 10 more Intercessors I have to do besides these Hellblasters. But I think it'd be kind of fun if we did a little project where I just focus on doing like as many chapters as I can, different color schemes wise. Obviously, we already have Dark Angels. I want to do an Ultramarines, just because I already have quite a few of those, but I haven't really done a tutorial on them yet, and I'm kind of used to that. And then after that, I think some Space Wolves, some maybe like Crimson Fists. Just a healthy kind of dose of different chapters to try out. And we'll do like one Intercessor for each one. I think that'd be kind of fun. And that gives us, like 10 videos minimum? So, it's a plethora of content, and I think that'd be kind of fun. But with that being said, if you have a specific chapter in mind that you would like me to try to do a how-to video on, feel free to leave a comment. This is probably the best time for it, as I kind of prepare to do that project, and especially once I wrap up these Hellblasters. I will definitely be jumping right into that. I might do the Tyranids first. Sorry, not Tyranids, Necrons. I have a couple unit of Necrons that I want to do. But if you guys are like really wanting to see something else, Space Marine color scheme wise, feel free to let me know, and I'll kind of plan accordingly. Just be advised, I'm not going to do more Dark Angels. That's the one thing that I want to avoid. I feel like we've already done enough. This is probably going to be my last video for a while on Dark Angels. I might come back and do some more at some point. It's just kind of a fun little, just kind of talking while I paint. But in terms of, how-tos, I think we've covered everything there is to cover with it being Dark Angel related, unless I like did the lion, which I already have a lion model, and he's already painted. And this might come as heresy to some, but he's unfortunately painted in ultramarine colors. Maybe I'll show him off at some point. But when I first got him, I did not have a Dark Angel army, and I never really planned on making one. But then I started reading the Dark Angel books, and that was a mistake, because now I really like Dark Angels, and I want a army. So, thankfully I don't really play the game much. Every once in a while I'll kind of do a little game or two. So I don't really have to worry about my guys really matching color-wise. When I plop a Primarch on the field and he doesn't match his units, but if I did like competitive play, or if I played more often, it's definitely something I'd change up pronto. But we're not going to worry about that for now. Maybe in the future we'll paint the lion. But again, I think we've kind of exhausted our reserve of Dark Angel projects. And moving on, getting back to talking about what we're actually working on at the moment, we're going to be doing these little logos on their arm, the kind of sword with the wings. And we don't want to do that with our gold we've been using. We want to change it up a little bit. And if I can avoid peeking the microphone every time I open and close a paint pot, we're going to be using corn red. You can use a different shade if you want it lighter or darker. I'm really happy with corn. I think it's a great color. It's kind of the perfect shade for what we really want. And as always, we're going to make sure we are properly thinned. Maybe this is coming out a little too thin, actually. There we are. It's kind of getting more to the consistency of what we want. Still not quite there, but we'll make it work. And we're going to be real careful with this. Maybe I want a smaller brush, but we're going to try our best with what we have first and foremost, and just very lightly pressing down on all these little raised up areas will kind of help us get a very neat, hopefully well done start to our emblem here. We might have to go over it a couple times, and there's probably going to be some cleanup, but overall, so far at least, it's not looking too bad. Yeah, look at that. I don't want to jinx it, but we haven't really butchered it. And that's about all I can ask for. And here's the real tricky one, is doing that sword. I always kind of mess up on this, but yeah, there we go. Look at that. I'm learning. I'm evolving. Finally taking my own techniques to heart. And it's kind of hard to see, but we do have that tip covered. No euphemism intended there. Very, very friendly, family friendly is what we want to keep this. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. This is probably going to be the kind of longest of the kind of detail work we're going to do. We might get to doing washes in this episode, I'm not sure. Maybe not. I feel like this is probably going to be a lot more just kind of clean up and generally finishing up our base layers and kind of what we already have. At some point, I do want to cover the bases with Agrag's Earthshade. It'll give us more of a kind of static, or less of a static look, rather. And, it's just nice to kind of have more detail wherever you're able to. And we'll do the exact same thing. Just very lightly pressing down. And we'll even, because this dried already, we'll go back and we'll do a second layer on the other side. Again, I don't want to jinx it, but man, that's pretty good. For what I'm usually used to. Usually there's a ton of cleanup involved with these little logos, but not this time. I don't know if you guys are fans of H.P. Lovecraft. I was talking with a buddy last night about just our favorite authors, and of course Warhammer always comes up. I really love Dan Abnett, but H.P. Lovecraft, man, he's it's good to separate the art from the artist kind of thing. He had some bad mindsets. He had some kind of bad ideas. I think he was kind of he was a product of his time. We'll say that, right? I don't really want to dig too much into it, but definitely one of my other favorite authors. Shadow over Innsmouth is, of course, one of his most famous. I think it's probably my favorite. And there's another one, I forget what it's called, but he essentially goes to the Arctic, or the character he's writing goes to the Arctic and he encounters like these penguins that are like the old ones, basically. And it really, once you read Warhammer and you read about like chaos and the warp, it really starts to feel familiar when you read that sort of cosmic horror. So if you you're a fan of Warhammer or you're a fan of H.P. Lovecraft and you haven't read any Warhammer yet, I would definitely try to check out both. There's quite a lot of overlap, and I think a lot of it's not even like intentional. Um, Black Library kind of does take and borrow from other kind of pop culture references here and there. But I feel like the warp itself is just like, by definition, really close to Lovecraft's like idea of his kind of fantasy universe, if that kind of makes sense. I don't really know how to word it properly, but there's definitely a lot of overlap, especially when it comes to the warp. So there you go. There's my little anecdote of the day. Read H.P. Lovecraft, great author. He also he kind of does the Games Workshop thing where he has like a short story for everyone, right? They're just really varied. There's a lot of different topics. Of course, most of them are like cosmic horror, but some of them are just kind of like memes in their own way. One of his stories is about this wizard who like curses a family, and this family has like generations of their men dying before they reach like age 20 or 30 or something. And I don't want to like spoil it, of course, if you're gonna read it. But essentially, there's a big twist at the end, and it reads like it's just a meme, like a rage comic from back in like the early 2000s. If you were into those. But it's good stuff. Definitely recommend it. And speaking of authors, if you guys are into Mass Effect, the Mass Effect books are really well written. There's like 3 of them, I think. Definitely recommend checking those out. And one of the authors for the Mass Effect books, I think he wrote the first one. He also writes some of the Star Wars expanded universe stuff. The Knights of the Old Republic books, I think he did one of those as well. I can't think of his name. He has like a really long last name. But he's also a really good author. He's up there with Dan Abnett in terms of my kind of literary tastes. So definitely check out those kind of universes too, if you're into that sort of thing. If you're into sci-fi in general, I think Star Wars and Mass Effect have really good universes for it, as well as Warhammer, obviously. They kind of really mesh well together. Although nothing is quite as grimdark as Warhammer. Very, very dystopian sci-fi, and man, I love it. Absolutely love it. The average lifespan for a guardsman is like 14 hours if you're on the front line, which I know that's kind of a big misconception. It's kind of a meme, but it holds true in a lot of the books, especially the Gaunt's Ghost novels. Man, all of your characters that you like will die. Great books, though. I love Gaunt's Ghost. They're probably my favorite Guard series. But enough talking about books, right? That's for nerds, and we're not nerds here. Not while we're painting our little toy figures. We are nearly finished with these little emblems, though. I'm actually having a lot more of a good time than I thought I would painting these. They are coming along swimmingly. the last one I did, there's going to be a little bit of cleanup. That's just kind of the way it is. But other than that, these are going great, and we only have one more to do. Unfortunately, I'm using so little paint on my brush that it just constantly keeps drying out, which is something you have to worry about using these smaller brushes. So just kind of, not only make sure that you are keeping your paints thin every time you restock your brush here, but just make sure you keep adding water. It really helps kind of keep your brush, in decent shape, unlike what I usually tend to do, where I just run them into the ground. It's good for the longevity of your brushes if you're using something more expensive. And I'm sure I've mentioned it dozens of times. I buy these really cheap brushes. You can go on Amazon for like, I don't know, $4 for like a 20 pack. They're great. I don't have to worry about being too rough with them ever. But if you do choose to do more expensive brushes, just really make sure that you're washing them off very thoroughly every time you use them. Otherwise, they're gonna get ruined pretty quick. Also, invest in brush soap. That is a thing. I don't use it because I have no need for it. My brushes are easily replaceable, but if yours are not, please treat them with the care they deserve. It's like any tool, right? You wouldn't, disrespect your dad's hammer. There's no reason to disrespect your tools, and paintbrushes are part of that. Your palette, though, you can go crazy with. I'm sure you've noticed mine. There's so much dried paint on here. There's layers, like multiple layers, and I kind of like it. It does help me with thinning my paint a little bit more than it does just having it on a normal palette. I feel like it helps me. It's kind of like having a texture palette, right? For like dry brushing, so you know kind of what your dry brushing is going to look like. It's kind of giving me the same effect, but for my wet paints. And it just helps with thinning. So there's a little pro tip for you. Maybe let a few layers of paint really dry on your palette before you start, if you're having trouble with thinning paints. And we're going to get some more weird angles here as I do the other side of this wing. But overall, man, we have just powered through these. And I'm really glad. I figured these were going to be the hardest part. I figured we were going to be doing cleanup for days. But that's pretty decent. That is pretty decent. Look at that. And we've done it on all 5 of our guys. So we are going to do as far as we can get. We're going to try to do the eyes. And I'm going to be using a much smaller brush for this. I just want to make sure that this brush gets properly cleaned. I'm really enjoying it. It's still kind of in one piece, so we want to keep it that way. But this next brush I'm using is much smaller, if it even goes into focus. There we go. We are going to continue on with our corn red, and we're going to be doing the eyes. Make sure we don't have too much paint on our brush, otherwise it's going to get more and more awkward to do. And this might be a weird angle. I'm kind of focusing a little bit more on my brush than I am keeping things in view. But we're just very gently going to do the entire eye socket. And the awkward part, if you're right-handed, is doing the left, his left, our right. It's the opposite eye to whatever your dominant side is. And this is a little bit more messy, but we still got there. And we'll clean it up. This guy's helmet needs cleaned up anyway. That skull we just totally messed up on. But we're going to do the same thing with 1 or 2 more guys here while we have time. I want to keep these episodes at about 20 minutes each. It's just more manageable for me. And I've actually got a few days off work, so hopefully I can get some kind of videos backed up. I want to release like 1 a day at least. That's kind of my goal. And having a backlog for if I ever have like an off day would be really nice. And I want to get a little bit more paint on this guy. Unfortunately, my palette here has thinned out too much. It's dry now. Come on. My hands are starting to shake too. That's a good sign of when to stop, right? And we'll just fix up this a little bit here too. Don't worry about spilling any outside of the eye socket. It's very easily cleanable. Just do a little bit more Caliban green around it, and you'll clean it up super easy. It's much easier to fix up than most of the other spots we're working on here. And I think we'll do one more. We have just a little bit of extra time left, so we're gonna keep chugging along. And then next time we'll finish up these guys. I don't know if next time will be the last episode or not, but we'll do some washes. We'll do kind of the other little basics we need to finish up. And maybe we'll do some highlighting. Just a bit. I'm not really sure how far with that we will go. And there we are. Quick shout out, as always, I do have a Patreon. If you want to support this channel and have more videos come out more often, that's always a good idea to kind of look at for supporting me. Otherwise, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me out a ton, not only with getting my channel kind of more noticed, but also helping me with feedback. It helps me kind of figure out what you guys want me to do, how we're kind of going to go moving ahead, and just the general direction that things are going to go. So I appreciate all of it, and of course, thank you guys very much for watching, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next episode.